Hey, we're here today with Scott and myself, Zach, and we're looking at a few different things right now. We're having a lot of buyers coming to us right now, and they don't really understand some of the rules that we're seeing in mortgages and credit. And with that being the case, Scott and I decided to throw this together because we're seeing some unintended consequences that are sometimes there when a parent's trying to help their kid, but it's end up in the end it ends up not being as helpful as they think it is. So Scott, can you kind of explain what we're seeing right now on that?
Yeah, definitely. So, first off, we think if you're going to help a child, it really makes sense to have some kind of a plan. Now, every kid is different. And you might say, well, my child doesn't need this in writing, but you might say, you know what? My child does need it in writing because my experience with him or her is such that that makes it feel more official and formal, and they're actually going to follow the plan if they do that. So, we throw that out first off for you to consider. Does it need to be in writing? That's your decision. And then the next thing that we thought is there needs to be some type of time frame put together on paper with this. Is this a 6 to 12 month plan? Is this a 24-month plan? Is it a 36-month plan? But there needs to be some type of an end date to this whole thing because we're seeing people who like discount the rent for their kids to live in the basement, and there's no end to it. Like the kids are thinking, I can live here for nothing or for $500 for the next 6 years, and this is great. And what's happening, Zach? When a kid thinks, oh, my rent's only $500, when really market rent is $1,500, what happens?
We're seeing bad decisions being made. So I'd say the number one decision that we see is they end up going and getting uh really expensive cars. That's probably the number one thing we're running into where, you know, ended up going to the dealership, found a beautiful truck, and next thing you know, $70,000 later, he's got a 1,200, 12 or $1,300 truck payment. It's like, wow, that's an awesome truck, but it's not really helping him to get ahead.
Yeah, one of the good questions would be, is my kid driving a nicer car than I am? That's a really good place to start. But you're right. See, if that child doesn't feel the pressure of, oh, market rent is $1,500, that's what I need to be pretending to live with. And in theory, what you're hoping is you're charging them 500 and they're taking that extra $1,000 a month and throwing it into savings so that they can eventually get ahead, get out on their own, buy their own house, right? But it's, in so many cases, it's not happening. Instead, they're looking at that going, hey, I've got this extra money floating around. I could afford $1,000 car payment, which is totally not the case because now they're locked into your basement forever if they make that decision, right? It's going to be really painful for them to step into the real world and pay a normal $1,500 a month rent payment if they have $1,000 truck payment. So that's something that does concern us. I would say if I'm looking at that and I'm a parent, I would say maybe you ease into it. And for the first 90 days, you tell them, yeah, I'll give you a discounted rent. It's only $500 a month to help you get back on your feet again. But from that point forward, I'm going to charge you market rent and go ahead and charge them the $1,500 because that's the number they need to get used to. Now, if you as a parent want to say, but I'm only going to keep 500 of it, and I'm going to take that other $1,000 that I really didn't want to charge them, and I'm going to just throw it in a little savings account here. And when they're done living at home, I'm going to give them that money back as a down payment for their house. That's a great way to do it, but somehow or another, they have to get accustomed to paying the market rent because that's real life. Otherwise, they're never going to get out of your basement. So those are, good questions to ask. Am I going to offer discounted rent? If so, for how long? How do I help them make the transition? And am I going to enable them so that they can live in my basement forever? Is that what I want? Is it even a healthy situation? In most cases, it's good for kids to get out on their own, build their own life, be at least a few doors down from mom and dad. That's usually a good thing. What else do you see, Zach, about having a plan?
Next thing would be kind of a budget. As we look at that, we're seeing, I mean, with the cost of living that's gone up over the last 12 to 18 months, sometimes groceries are costing more. And we're seeing this next generation eating out a lot more as well. Sometimes when I go into budgets with clients, we'll see, wow, we're spending $800 to $1,000 for a couple on food. And it's not because they're spending that much money on groceries, but it's because, hey, we're going to Costa Vida this weekend. We've got our swig budget. We've got all these other things that we buy that are deemed food, but that are also, just taking a large amount of the budget and kind of, making it so it doesn't really fit as well. So,
Yeah. And then the next item is long-term employment. Like, what's the plan? And we see so many kids that do this right. And I have to point this out because I'm so impressed with a lot of kids that mom and dad help them out, but it's really for a short period of time. We see kids that start college and they finish in 3 years instead of 4. Wow, kudos. I have a client that just recently finished a master's degree program in like 7 months. Hats off. She just knocked it out of the park. And kids like that are motivated, you want to help them because there's an end to it. And in this case, this girl got a master's degree, and guess what? Her income is going to go up as a result of that. And so it's the right play because there's a help that doesn't have a forever tag to it that ends up pushing them to a higher earning income level that in the end is going to help them out. So it really, really makes sense if you've got the child who's motivated in the right way to improve their life and keep moving in the right direction. And in those cases, boy, it really helps them get that done quicker and get on their feet even better. Rules of credit. This is something here at the end that's worth mentioning. At the end of the day, if you want to get on your own, you've got to have some credit. And in order for your children to be independent, they have to know the rules of the game. Zach and I have recently published a couple of books. One is called the 12 Secrets to Improve Your Credit Score in 37 Days or Less. And another one is Stop Paying Extra. I've got a copy of them right here. And these are books that will help your children learn the rules of the game. This is a game that everyone has to play, like it or not. If you're gonna live in the world of finance and you're going to own vehicles and homes and these types of things, you have to know how to work the system to your benefit. And to do that, you've got to get the scores up because you'll save thousands of dollars by having higher scores. So just jot those down real fast. 12creditsecrets.com and stoppayingextra.com are places that your child can go and just get a free PDF of our book. And what does it take to read Stop Paying Extra, Zach?
About 25 minutes.
Yeah, it's such a fast.
12 Secrets is probably maybe an hour right in there.
Yeah. So. But the information in these books is like the best of the best. And it really will help them get over the hump. So again, we just put this together because we're seeing a lot of cases where parents think they're helping, but they're actually hindering because they haven't set it up properly. There's no expectation, there's no real agreement, there's no end to it. The child isn't saving because the parents are sacrificing, so the child doesn't have to pay as much. And there's really no long-term vision of this child getting ahead. It's just this forever enabling and helping thing. So we wanted to address this because we think it'll help a lot of people.
Now, one last thing too that we've noticed, a lot of parents are telling their children that they need 20% down to buy a home. So in just the last month, we probably had a few that ended up thinking, okay, I've got to get to 100,000 or, just these really high numbers. When in reality, right now we're seeing a lot of 3% down on conventionals or 3.5% down on an FHA loan. And so, if you've got anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000, you're probably able to look at starting to purchase. And so that's kind of a good thing to remember is, hey, it's not the old rules of 20% down. There's really good loan programs out there with lower down payments.
That's such valuable information. It truly pains my heart when we just had one recently when a young person walks in here having saved her guts out for 4 years to have a couple $100,000 in savings now. And if she had bought a home 4 years ago, she'd have a home with $200,000 in equity, and she'd also have the $200,000 she had saved over the last 4 years. But instead, she's going to put all that into the house. So there's just something to be said for getting into a house without 20% down when it's reasonable, when it makes sense, when it fits and the budget's right. But yeah, thank you, Zach, for bringing that up, because you definitely do not need 20% down to buy a house. You can't even save money fast enough to outpace the real estate market. It's almost impossible. So, all right, folks. Well, we hope that was valuable information. We hope it helps you and your children. If you would like to even just spend 20 or 30 minutes with me or Zach talking about, here's my situation, how can I set up a good plan for my child, build some boundaries around this, what would be a reasonable amount of rent, da, 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 da. We're happy to help you. We don't charge you anything for this kind of stuff. We're just trying to help people get in a place to be independent and eventually own a home of their own. So holler back, let us know if that's something you want us to help you with, and we'd be happy to do it.